I'm Ken Eakin. I'm a consultant with Lean Agility, and I'm doing a little talk today on using AI in government for beginners. So hopefully you're in the right place. Um, I'm going to just do some housekeeping and make sure that I'm going to mute all of you just so there's no background noise. That doesn't mean to say you can't ask questions or, unmute yourself and talk. I do love to hear from you. So feel free to participate in the chat or, like just by raising your hand and asking a question. Okay, so before we start, I'd lined up some quick polls. I don't know, some people are having a bit of problems with this, but I'm gonna try it anyway. We'll see how it works. I'm trying to gauge your knowledge of AI. So this, I've sort of set it up as a beginner session, but I want to know, are you really a beginner, or are you just kind of like curious to see if Ken knows more than you do or something? So whatever your kind of level is, just give it the best give it the best answer you can. Okay, so there's a bunch of people who've tried it out but don't really know how to use it effectively. That seems to be the biggest response. I like that. Thank you. Okay, so that's good. So you're in the right place. I won't like spend a lot of time on the real beginner stuff. Because what I'd like you to do, if you have access to Copilot or some other AI, you can try this out. Like I'm going to give you some demos, but I'm also going to share some documents with you so you can try it out on your own. And that might be kind of fun to see how that goes. Let me see. Now, I got another one for you. Let me see if I can do this. I'm kind of new to polls. There we go. All right. Here's another one, a one question one. So I want to know sort of where you are in your organization relative to lean. Okay, cool. Excellent. So thanks for answering that. Wow, this technology seems to actually work. So this is kind of nice. And I believe that you can see the answers too, which I hope doesn't skew your response. But it looks like most of you, at least more than half, are part of a lean team. So that really helps me understand where we're at with this presentation. So thank you for that. Okay, our quick agenda for today. So I'm going to go over like what AI is, because I did promise it was for beginners, but I'll go quickly over that. And then, more importantly, like where does it fit in government work and where does it not? Then I'm going to get into a little bit of lean theory, just about bottlenecks. It's a quickie, so you don't have to be too worried. Then we'll get into the more hands-on practical stuff, how to use AI effectively. I've got a kind of a made-up agency and some documents we can try. Then I'm going to conclude with how you can use AI as a lean practitioner in, like, I call it your DMAIC project. So whether you're using DMAIC or some other framework, it's really like there's a lot of things that we can do as lean practitioners to help us in that. And then we'll sort of wrap up. Hopefully there'll be some time for questions and so on. Okay, so what do we mean by AI? Well, traditional automation, I think a lot of people mix up automation with AI. There can be some overlap, but traditional automation makes it sound like it was like, 100 years ago. It's not that traditional. Automation is still with us and we still need to automate a lot of things, but it's based on coded rules. It's kind of like, I want to get from A to B and it always does the same thing. So the same inputs will produce the same outputs every time. It's powerful, but often inflexible. Okay, so we wrestle with these systems all the time where it can't do exactly what we need it to do. An example might be, finance system. There's a bunch of people in different areas, teams, departments who are updating their financials every month, and then the system aggregates all that and presents it, presents like the calculation of working capital, let's say, to the accountants. So that's one way a sort of automated system works. So artificial intelligence, a bit differently, broadly speaking, it refers to computer systems that can perform tasks typically requiring some degree of human intelligence. Now, we could get in a big debate about what is human intelligence and, to what degree, but that's kind of the working definition. AI appears to learn things. It doesn't really. It's just like very sophisticated algorithms, I think. Um, but it's smarter than these sort of dumb systems which have to be coded to do different things. AI sort of learns on its own, or it appears to learn on its own. So an example, just like a personal example, and maybe you've tried this, is you want to go on a vacation. So you tell the AI what kind of vacation experience you want, how much budget you've got, how much time you've got, and then it creates this custom itinerary for you, right? You may have tried this already. So that's the kind of thing where it's much more customizable and it's relating to you, whereas the system, the traditional automation, it just doesn't care about you very much. Sorry to say, in case you're attached to your systems. I'm just going to jump down and see what. I'm going to have trouble paying attention to chat and presenting, so I'm just going to stick with the presentation. But if there's questions in the chat, I'll address them later. So there's a little sort of subset of AI, because AI is like a really big topic, and so the subset of that is generative AI, or the cool kids call it Gen AI, right? So this is a subset of AI that learns from existing data, like the entire internet, plus any files you give it access to, and it generates entirely new content. So unlike your traditional systems where you just input stuff and then it kind of summarizes or synthesizes, this generative AI, which is what we're going to be talking about today, actually like creates new content. And I've got some like wonderful little PowerPoint graphics. So I see Danielle has her hand up. Danielle, did you want to interject?
I'm sorry, Ken. Ken and I are friends, by the way, everybody. So I apologize if I'm kind of
sometimes
taking liberty.
Sometimes friends, sometimes not.
Ken, one of my colleagues, I think, is waiting in the to be let in. You are the moderator, so just letting you know.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense because I disabled the sort of the room, whatever they call it, the waiting room. Everyone should be able to just join. Click the link, join, and they're there.
Okay, I'll let them know. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry if there's any sort of technological.
That's okay. No worries.
Snafu, but it should be open. Okay, so back to this. I highlighted the word text because in government we deal with a lot of texts, right? Documents, verbal stuff. But it can create songs for you and everything. So when we talk about AI today, we're talking about generative AI. And if you want to be really hip with the lingo, some people call this generative AI large language models, or LLMs. So now you can really impress your kids. So we're all familiar with some of these big names, right? Or I think you would probably recognize some or all of these names: Copilot, Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT. I haven't used all of them extensively. My colleagues use Claude a lot and love it. But I recognize you work in government and you're probably constrained to using Copilot only. Sorry, just checking the group email because people are like texting me about stuff. So there's other uses of AI which we're not going to get into. Okay, but like self-driving cars and facial recognition and just even these recommendation algorithms, like because you liked this show, you might like that show, or those kind of things. So I'm going to talk about Copilot mostly, but if you have access to these, awesome. The other ones, use the ones that work best for you. So I was going to do a little warm-up. If some of you have never used AI before, if you can open Copilot or another AI if you want. I thought we could look for some funny jokes. and maybe involving chickens. I think like you pick an animal like a chicken or a fish is a good one. So if I'll just do this. I'll just do this. So I'll show you. I'm gonna browse to my browser, and I'm gonna close my banking information, and I'm going to, let's see here. Okay, so a bit of luck you can get here. If you type in like office.com in your browser address field, it should take you there. You might have to sign in, but I'm gonna say like, give me some jokes involving fish. I'm gonna go fish today. So it's like a browser, right? If you can get into this browser, then you just ask it a question, and it thinks about it for a while, and then it generates all sorts of answers. So it's not just taking me to a link where someone's posted a bunch of jokes. It's actually going and fetching these jokes and bringing them to me. So this is how it's kind of creating new content. What did the fish say when he swam into a wall? Damn. Ah! Okay, so if does anyone have a good one that they put it? You can put it in chat if you've got a good joke. I don't know. All right, so that's our like first step. Hopefully you are able to get that far, and maybe it even made you laugh. So I just want to talk a little bit now about what are the key strengths of AI, because it can do some things well, and it can do other things not so well. One of the biggest opportunities in government is content creation and processing, especially documents. So drafting routine correspondence, briefings, reports, emails, summarizing long documents and meeting notes. This is a big one. Did you know that you can record your meetings like this one, Teams meeting, and then you can ask the built-in AI, I guess it's Copilot because it's Microsoft, and you can say like, summarize this meeting. What were the key themes? What were the action items? Whatever. You don't even have to tell it that. You just say, summarize this meeting. It'll listen to the transcript, read the transcript, and it'll give you notes. It's amazing. Translating between languages. So this one's a really good one, especially up here in Canada. I know some of you are from the US, but in Canada we have bilingual government. So every important written document has to be in both languages. We have to be able to carry out the work of government in both official languages of English and French. So translation can be a barrier. Now we have like pretty high quality translation at our fingertips. Standardizing the format and style of things, like, oh, you didn't use the right template. Like, how many times have I heard that one, where it's like, oh, they saved the template from 7 years ago on their desktop and they keep using that one, but it's changed. Here's an example, right? Turning technical report into a public-facing summary. So let's say you're tasked with, I don't know, there's some sort of engineering report. The engineers have talked about, the latest, I don't know what they're doing. Like, let's say it's a public works thing, like a dam or something like that, hydroelectric dam. And the engineers have, told you all about this, but it's all kind of gobbledygook that no one would understand or appreciate except for other engineers. But now you've got a boss who's saying, well, we have to put out a press release to the general public. Well, you can just say, hey, AI, take all that technical stuff and turn it into language that the general public can understand. And it does a really good job of that. So it can also analyze data. You can feed it forms and spreadsheets, and I'll show you later on, but how we might do that. But you can have it classify and route documents sometimes. I don't know about that one exactly, but identifying patterns and trends, that's a really good one. You've got big data sets and you say like, you can set it up to identify like outliers and anomalies. It saves you a bunch of time. Risk scoring too, right? So anomalies, hey, this record seems to be out of whack. Like maybe, they use it at the banks to scan your credit card transactions. So you have a bunch of little transactions, and then all of a sudden there's like a big one. Well, I can bet that a computer, not a human, but a computer is noticing that, saying, "Oh, that's like way more than normal. Is that a legitimate vendor, et cetera, et cetera?" So it would look for things like, "Oh, is that an illicit transaction?" And then if it is, it would kick it up to a human, I would hope, and they would contact you. So flagging applications that need priority review. You got 7,000 applications, but you want to see all the ones that involve, refugees from Lebanon or what have you. AI is awesome at going through huge reams of data or emails and flagging the ones that you've said that are important. Service and communication. I'm not as big a fan of chatbots as some people are, but you can use it to help with routine inquiries, drafting responses to common questions, triaging requests to appropriate teams, and so on and so forth. I'm going to keep going. So you want to know, like, I'm reiterating this thing, generative, what I put on the screen a few slides ago. Generative AI is a type of AI that learns from existing data to generate entirely new content such as text. So this is, I think, where it can help you out a lot. We deal a lot with documents and information. So think about, do you create or edit documents, big ones, small ones, medium ones, gathering and summarizing information, analyzing and interpreting data. I think those are the big areas where it can help you out. I've got a big long list of areas where it can help you, and I've written these, I've expressed these as like a verb noun kind of thing, so it's an activity. But think about document process. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want you to look it over, maybe download the slide deck afterwards and look it over and say, do I do any of this stuff? Because it might be a good opportunity. So do I do document processing? Do I do information management? Or do I need to be doing it? Communication and service, we talked about that one. Analysis and decision support. Decision support, not decision making, but decision support. Regulatory and compliance, so like flagging risks, monitoring things. And financial operations can also benefit from a lot of this. So just think to yourself, do I do these things and regularly? And if I do, and I find them tedious and annoying, AI may be good for you. Now, I have to, out of due diligence, tell you what it's not good at. So it doesn't understand nuance and political context. It's not good at making ethical or value-based judgments. It's not good at handling unique, unprecedented situations. Knowing what it doesn't know. Well, we're all not very good at that, aren't we? That one's a bit mysterious because, like, how would we know what the AI doesn't know? But I think the point is it's not perfect. It doesn't have all the information. And ensuring perfect accuracy without human verification. So it's not good at that. So I want to emphasize human verification or review is really important as part of this process. It can save you time, but it's not going to eliminate you as a human altogether, which may be a good thing. So just quickly, there's some kind of principles for ethical AI use. I'm sure, or I'm pretty sure that your management has probably shoved down your throats all these rules about what you can and can't do. But just generally speaking, if we follow these principles, we'll be in a good place. So as I mentioned, always have a human review the work of AI, especially when it comes to making decisions about citizens' rights, laws, finances, big, high impact things that might, have big ramifications. You can't just let the robot decide. Privacy and confidentiality, right? So this is, I think, one of the biggest barriers to AI adoption right now in government is that powers that be are kind of locking it down, saying you can't share any confidential documents. You can't just put it in the AI search, because then it's like up in the cloud somewhere and Microsoft has it, and who knows where it's going to go. I mean, Microsoft claims that its data is locked down and all that, but I don't think most governments are ready to take those risks. So be very sensitive about personal data and classified data, and don't use it. in an AI context. And then just, check your organization's AI policy, try to use the approved tools, ask questions, and so on. Okay, there's my due diligence. So just moving on to quick theory kind of thing. I want to talk about bottlenecks. So this is where lean comes in. So I'm gonna show you in a minute, like how to use AI effectively, but I want you to kind of see the big picture first. So I've just got a few slides on bottlenecks. We start with like the way we map our processes. A lot of you are lean practitioners, so you're doing a lot of mapping, and we map these with our traditional, rectangles and arrows, and all the rectangles are kind of the same size. But if we were honest about like the actual effort it takes at each process step, we'd probably I don't mean honest, but if we were to draw it more representationally, we'd have this mixed bag of things where every process is a different shape and color and font size. And, and some of it takes, I'm trying to like illustrate this as, some of it takes more time and some of it takes less time. And we tend to sort of visually represent it as like, oh, it's all the same, but it's not, right? And an example, check the application, that only takes 10 minutes. Review and recommend a decision. Well, that takes a long time. That takes 3 hours. And then it's passed on for approval or rejection. That only takes 5 minutes. So we've got 3 boxes that look like they're equal, but they're not. So what do we do about that? Why do we care? Why is that an issue? Well, there's a skill testing question for you. I'm gonna ask you, well, it says on the screen. So this is the capacity of each team in this value stream. So everybody's got different productive capacity for a whole lot of reasons: people, technology, training, other priorities, etc. But intake can process 100 files, review can process 80, approval can process 30, and issuance can process 100. At what rate do the clients get their permits? I'm looking for an answer from someone in the audience. There we go. I got some 30s. Okay. Yeah. So, oops, I double clicked there, but yeah, essentially it's 30. Why is this? Because the rule of bottleneck says that clients only get their files or their outputs, whatever it might be, at the slowest rate in the entire value stream. So it's the slowest rate that determines what the client experiences. And what we have happen is then bottlenecks result when there's a team that's more productive upstream. What's interesting is that this last step, it had a capacity of 100, but it's only going to process 30 because it's only being fed 30. So it's probably busy doing other things. But in this specific process, it's only doing as much as it gets, right? It can't do more than what's in your queue. All right. So let's say we decide, oh, this process is terrible. Our permitting process is terrible. We need AI. We need to deploy some technology that's going to, change everything. And it turned out that the review team complained the loudest, and so we deployed or they just on their own initiative learned some AI stuff, and they they souped up their team. Like they basically, in this process, they don't need people. The robot's doing everything. They've got a capacity of 8,000 files a month, or maybe it's 8 billion, who knows. So the question to you is, we've changed this, we've improved it, right, with AI. At what rate do the clients get their files now? Danielle, I know you know the answer. Anyone else? So it's still 30, right? So it appears we've improved it, but from the client perspective, we haven't. And we've just inadvertently created a bigger bottleneck at the approval stage. So as I mentioned, these are things you want to commit to memory, right? The clients receive the output at the rate of the slowest process in the entire value stream. It's like driving on a single lane highway. It's like if there's a slow car in front of you, that's as fast as you're gonna go. Corollary to this is that a bottleneck results wherever one team is producing outputs faster than the next team, which always happens. There's always some sort of queue or backlog, but if it's giant, then we'll call it out. And the flip side is that if your team is more productive than the one that's feeding you, you can kind of take it easy in that process. Now you've probably got tons of other work to do, but the idea is in isolation, there's underutilization. These people have more capacity than they're getting work. So the goal, I think I clicked prematurely there, but our goal is we've got this bumpy value stream, right? That's not balanced. We've got different capacities and different teams. What we want, in theory, is perfect balance. We want everybody to be processing at the same rate. In fact, if everybody processed at 40 files a month, this process would improve for the client. So when we deploy improvements, whether it's technology or not, our goal is to make every process work at the same rate, more or less, acknowledging that it's never going to be perfect, it's never going to be exactly equal, but the goal is to keep it really in balance. And so our lesson today is just, I'm going to talk about AI, but in the context of, think about the bigger picture. I don't want you to end up creating more work for someone else. So a quick review, if you're over here, you deploy AI in your area, you inadvertently are now making the next team miserable. Now, maybe you want to make your next team miserable, I don't know, but in theory, you're all working on the same team, right, for the client. So the client's unhappy, you're happy, but the client still isn't happy. And when you don't have happy clients, you don't have, happy work. So best practice, as I suggested, is to deploy it at the bottleneck stage. If you can identify where the biggest bottleneck is and deploy improvements there, you're going to be better off. Everybody's going to be better off because a happy client means happy employees. Okay, so that's enough theory. I want to move on now to using AI effectively. And I've got an example from this fictitious agency called the Salty Water Agency. This little logo, courtesy of AI. So here's the situation. We've got an oil tanker. We got an oil tanker called the MV Barnacle, and it is run aground. And you are an analyst who has been tasked to write the speaking notes for Ms. Tuna Turner, the executive director of the Salty Water Agency. For an upcoming press conference, Ms. Turner will be giving an update tomorrow morning and needs you to write her speaking notes ASAP. Okay, so I don't know if this is gonna work, but here, let me give me 1 second. I am somewhat prepared for this. This is an experiment on my part, so we're just doing a little thing here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in the chat a link to this document that I'm working with. I don't know if you're gonna be able to access it. That's my experiment here, because you're external to my organization. But I put it in the chat and see if you can do it. I'm going to do it myself. So I'm not going to read it all for you, but it's a news article. Okay. It's telling you what's going on with this MV Barnacle. So you received this news article. It's like 1 and a bit pages. And what you're going to do is we want to just say, so I'm back in Copilot with our fish strokes. I'm going to attach it. So I'm going to upload it. And there we go. So I upload it. Now I'm going to say, write me some speaking notes. And it's thinking, it's like, do, pretty quick. So it's assuming that, all these things, opening, what happened, current situation, response underway, environmental community consideration, salvage and next steps, commitment going forward, closing. Okay, so it's pretty good, right? It produced like a lot of really good bullet points. It organized it by logical flow. It's yeah, may integrate fish jokes, as Melissa's asking. But, and it says like, oh, I can do this and I can do that. Like, it's really, trying to be helpful and suggest even better ways of doing this. But I like this. I'm gonna copy it. I can just copy it here, and I'm gonna, send it off uh, to the director's office, right? So I sent it off to the executive director, and guess what happened? I sent it to them just in that beautiful thing that it produced, and the executive director's office said, "No, we don't like it." So what happened there? And I'll let you tell me what happened. But like, why would they send it back? Why would they? Why do you think they might have sent it back? Jordan.
It's possible that if you didn't review it when it spit out of your AI tool, that it could have had misinformation. It could have had really crappy grammar. It could have just been not formatted the way you wanted to. As you said before, it needs a set of human eyes.
It does. So we're going to introduce, thank you for that. So we're going to introduce the human into this. Some of the rules for making AI work for you is that you got to remember that AI's outputs are only as good as its inputs. So that old phrase of garbage in, garbage out still applies. Now, I wouldn't say it's garbage, but it's sort of generic. But people aren't generic. Oops, where are we going here? There we go. So getting the most out of AI means improving our prompts. It's all about the art of the prompt, right? It's all about getting the right prompt to get the right output. I'll explain that a little bit. And Danielle shared this with me, and I've heard it from others too. It seems to be going around. And I really like this, is treat AI as if it were a student intern who never sleeps on their first day. So they're bright and eager to please, but they know nothing about your work, the lingo, the people, the organizational culture and politics. So you got to really spell things out for them. It's like, oh, the executive director hates the word, or hates the species of fish sturgeon. You can't mention anything about sturgeon, or whatever silly thing that she has a pet peeve about. Those kind of things. AI doesn't know that. So I got a little illustration here. So our biggest mistake is that we assume AI knows what we know and thinks the way we think. So, this is the way we wish it worked. We just say, hey, give me this thing that I'm thinking about in my head, and then AI is magically going to produce an output that we love. And that is not the way it works, unfortunately. For one thing, we could ask the question, does AI know what the client wants, like what they really want? Not if you don't tell it, right? And even more importantly, does AI know what the client is trying to achieve? Right? She wants some speaking notes, but what's she trying to do with those speaking notes? It's not just to hang it on her wall. So, key question to ask when you're trying to refine your usage of AI, you want to say, what do we need to feed our AI so that it can produce the right output to achieve the right outcome for the client? Right? Your client's internal, that's okay. External, same thing. What do we need to feed it? What goes into this? Well, some of the common things, oops, I overclicked again, but gather all the relevant facts and data, all the background info. What are those little pet peeves, the client preferences, the likes and dislikes, the constraints? Oh, we can't talk about sturgeon, or we can't talk about budget constraints, or we can't talk about whatever, the project X, we can't mention it. But AI doesn't know that. You know that. Style, right? Emphasis, tone, length, formatting, all that kind of stuff. AI doesn't know. It's going to take a guess, but it may not be what our client wants. One of the best things you want to feed AI is a previous example. So if you've got a really good example of speaking notes that you gave to Ms. Tuna Turner, and she really liked them for another situation, you could then go to your AI and say, based on this previous file, take this news article and produce it just the way I, did it in the last one. And templates are also a good thing to feed it. So you got to do a little bit of background homework. You got to do a little bit of preparation to use AI effectively. You're still going to save a ton of time because you're not going to be thinking about the wording and wordsmithing and all that. So some keys to good prompt writing. Tell the AI, this is where you should start, right? Just tell the AI what your role is, what output you are trying to produce, and for whom. So I am an analyst trying to write a set of speaking notes on the MV Barnacle situation. That's my output for the executive director of a government agency. Great place to start. What background context data? Well, in this case, I've just got a news article. For the sake of illustration, we just got one. You can point it to a whole, folder in your, in your organization if it lets you. I don't know if it does yet. This is where the kind of details come in. What parameters or constraints exist? So what does the executive director want in terms of style, formatting? Who's her audience? What does she want to highlight? What is she ultimately trying to achieve? You got to find that out and tell AI what it is. And like I mentioned before, set it up with a great example to copy. So we're going to try this again. We thinking about these things. I want to produce the right thing to achieve the right output and outcomes for my client. So I went to the executive director's office and said, hey, can you just tell me what's an ideal speaking notes thing look like? And they provided me this beautiful template, which I'll show you quickly. And it tells me the style guidelines, the content guidelines. There's all things like, don't mention Bill 897, downplay the environmental angle. So all these biases and nuances and stuff about what the director wants. I'm going to share this with you. I'll see if I don't know if that works, but try it at home. Okay, so we're going to try this again. If I go to the right place. Uh-oh, got too many things going on here. There we go. Okay, so speaking note guidelines and blank, hopefully that's what I shared with you. So I'm now going to use a new prompt. There we go. So I'm telling it, who I am, what I'm trying to produce, for whom, and giving a title so it has a bit of context. And then I'm going to say, based on the attached news article and the attached template, please write the notes, speaking notes. Okay, so I'm going to just doing a little copy paste here. This is like the previously attached news article. Okay, so here we go. So according to the template and guidelines, it says, okay, I want a one pager. It has to be in this format where it says, facts, what we're doing about it, next steps. And ta-da, look at this. It produced exactly what I was looking for. And I don't know, has anyone tried this at home? Are you able to actually take those documents and try it yourself? Did you get similar results? I'd love to hear if you did or didn't. In any case, that's something you can play with. Okay, so that worked out better. Not that the first version was bad, it's just it wasn't tailored to what the client wanted, right? So AI is going to do its best, but it's still, it's still not going to be perfect unless you feed it things. So I think we're on until what, 11:20, 11:15? I'm sorry, I've lost track of my time here. 5 minutes left. Oh, Lord. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to speed through this, but we're almost at the end. I wish I had more time for this, but I'll go through it, and there's more. And you'll see. All right, so some of you use DMAIC. This is just a quick overview of DMAIC. If you use a different structure, it's probably similar in your continuous improvement opportunities. So there's lots of opportunities in each of the phases, and I've laid them out here. And through our experimentation at Lean Agility, we've kind of found there's about 6 roles that, oh, and I did some nice little animation with the hats. So you can think of AI as wearing a bunch of different hats. It can play different roles for you. So it can be an analyst for you. It can be a synthesizer, so it can take a lot of stuff and put it together. It can be a drafter, so it can write things like we were doing just now. And by the way, those speaking notes for Ms. Tuna Turner, you'd have to review them with human eyes. It can be a researcher. It's really good for that. If you want to gather a bunch of information. It can be a thinking partner, so it can challenge your assumptions, give you recommendations. And this is a kind of 6th one where you got to be mindful that you got to know what it can't do and where its boundaries are. But the key principle is that it saves you a lot of time because in between sessions. So you've got people in the room, you're doing the value-adding work of generating ideas, all that good stuff, and then it helps you organize, synthesize, and so on in between sessions. So you're saving tons of time. Maybe you don't have to keep people in the room for a whole day because you can just have them there for like an hour or 2 to get the value-adding work done, and then you just run the AI in the background. So quick examples here. You've got a spreadsheet with all your data on this process. And using this prompt, use the attached spreadsheet to create a Pareto chart of the waiting time. And I tell it how to calculate it. So I want to see where the waiting time is in this process. This is a real example. I did this, and it tells me by step number which has the most waiting time, which has the least waiting time. So we can direct our efforts to the ones that are really, really slow. Another one, you've taken a bunch of interview notes, you've interviewed a bunch of clients or customers, and you've got a bunch of notes. You just feed it this thing. You say, use these, take these notes, and what do you think the top 3 things are? And this is what it's spit out: predictability and visibility of hiring time, clear, usable guidance, and so on. And there's more to it, but this is just a sample, but it's really delightful. Like in 30 seconds or less, it takes all your notes and it just says, what are the top 3 things? And the last one I want to show you, or second to last one, is we like to, at Lean Agility, use sort of stretch brainstorming. So we like to have these big, big challenges when we're coming up with ideas. And you should do that with your teams too. So we fed it, a map, some charter objectives, the root causes that we determined as a team. And this is a bit of a long one, but it came up with these things like, what would we have to change so that phase 1 disappears entirely? No separate request intake, no sequential approvals, and we still maintain defensibility and quality. Those kind of things where you say like, so you've got this great question for brainstorming. What would it take to make this radical, amazing improvement? So one area where it kind of failed, I tried to get it to like draw a spaghetti diagram. I gave it an example like this. I fed it my VSM in the background here, and I said, create this and create a spaghetti diagram because a picture is worth 1,000 words. It kind of screwed up. It just drew a bunch of scribbles, but it added some like roles that weren't even there. I said, no, count the arrows. I want to see like, representative and et cetera. So then it did this, but it's going to this like, anyway, I didn't like this. There were some like invisible points. And I said, well, no, do it again. And it still didn't do it. It looks nice, but it's going to these like, so my learning as Copilot, at least, is not very good at creating diagrams. So it does have limitations. Okay, we're going to skip questions. Sorry, I wish I had time, but you please feel free to reach out to me, put them in the chat, send me an email. I'm happy to answer all your questions. Things you can do: identify repetitive, tedious tasks, start with something simple, like experiment with this, like try something on an old file that has no consequences, just see if it works. And then create a prompt library. This is a new kind of lingo thing, but like, don't make your team like start from scratch. But if you're doing a repetitive thing that other team members are doing, just save your prompts and refine them, but keep them in a library so everybody can access them. Okay, so to wrap up, sorry, I've gone over time already. Shame on me, or I'm almost at time. We've got a new course out there for lean practitioners. So people who've kind of done a yellow belt or something equivalent to that, you've got some knowledge. It's called Practical AI for Process Improvement Specialists. You can find out more by looking at this QR code or clicking on the link. It's a 2-day course, and everything you need is right there.